All right, welcome everybody to the first edition of the Call the Spot on the Card, a new segment here on Smark Out Moment. This is another themed post where we have some kind of a list that's built around one basic concept, and this is basically a marry, fuck, kill in a lot of different ways for wrestling. Instead of having the three things where you do the marry, fuck, and kill, there's five wrestlers, and you have to place them in a hierarchy kind of a situation. Do they get the top spot, main event, a little bit lower with the upper mid card, lower again with the mid card, lower again with the jobber, or the very last one, are they just future endeavored and released from the company? So you really have the full spectrum here of being at the top of the company or just completely gone and not a part of it whatsoever. And that's what makes it kind of fun because you have to pick one person for each one. You can't double up anything. You can't opt out for somebody and swap somebody else in there. So we're going to do future lists where it's going to have maybe the five members of DX. We're going to have people from Evolution. We're going to have the Horsemen members. We're going to do lots of different themed things like that. And we're going to build this first one. Actually, we're going to do two things around the Elimination Chamber for this year. The first set is going to be the people that lost a chance to be in the Elimination Chamber. And then the second group is going to be the people that beat them to get that spot in there. So, first things first, the Elimination Chamber losers. Those were Dolph Ziggler, Jack Swagger, and the three members of The Shield. Who would you get for the different spots? We're going to go person to person here instead of go release and jobber and so on and so forth. But I'll go last here. Peyton, who did you go with for the Elimination Chamber losers? Start with released and work their way up to main event.
Okay. Well, for released, I would release Jack Swagger. I think this is going to be pretty much unanimous with that. With the guy's used up anything you're going to get out of him. For jobber, I would do Seth Rollins. I think he's a guy who's going to bounce around there a lot and make a lot of other guys look really good. For mid-card, I would have Dolph Ziggler. I think he is a tremendous talent, and I think he's going to continue to be a tremendous talent. I just don't think he has everything to be that world title type of guy, but I think he could be a guy like a Rick Rude that can just be around, be awesome matches, be an awesome character, and still attract lots of people to the buildings. Dean Ambrose, I would have be the upper mid-card guy. I think it's time for him to really step up and start showing off a lot more of the personality that he has. And Roman Reigns, shoot that guy in the main event. That guy is a star. Baby girl, he is going to the moon.
Wego, what is your list?
Okay, for me, as far as going released, I think Jack Swagger, just because he's fucking abysmal. I can't stand him in the ring. I can't stand him cutting the promo because he's got that whole fucking lisping going with the people. So as far as my jobber, I'd probably go with Seth Rollins. I think he's good, but he's a good in-ring worker, so he'd do a good job of putting other people over in a decent way. As far as a mid-card guy, Dean Ambrose. I think he's incredibly overrated as far as how people are saying he's some Bryan Pillman cross between, I don't know who's the other guy everyone says he's very similar to.
I've mostly heard Brian Pillman.
Because Brian Pillman is someone else, and they say he's got everything to get to the main event level. Honestly, his singles matches, they bore me. So I think he's obviously got something that people like, so stick him in the mid-card role. As far as my upper mid-carder goes, Dolph Ziggler is a guy that you can put the title on, even if it's not for a long time, or at least use to have a good main event level matchup. And the main event's got to be Roman Reigns. That guy has everything. He has the look, he has the ability, he has the it factor. Everyone's getting behind him, and he's definitely a future main eventer.
Drew, what's your list?
All right, so starting from the bottom, Jack Swagger is still there with being the one I released because it's Swagger. Come on, not much you can do about that now. For Jobber, people will keep on saying Seth Rollins, but I'm gonna put Dolph Ziggler in that spot mainly for the fact that hold on. The only reason why is because the last three members are the Shield members. They're all younger. Well, they're not really younger, but they're newer to the company. I think we should worry more about building them up than building Ziggler up at this point. You'd gotten all you could get out of Ziggler, and Ziggler is also A bit of a liability when it comes to injuries now. He's had multiple concussions, and I think, it's just too much of a liability at this point to have him in a mid-card role. That's why you see him be jobbing out a lot nowadays. So for the mid-card role, I'm gonna put Dean Ambrose there. I really can't see him being a heavyweight champion or being in the upper mid card role. But I can always see him being a tag team in the U.S. champion. I don't know why. I just do not see him as the guy that could hold a heavyweight championship. So then for the upper mid card, I'm gonna go with Seth Rollins, which I know everyone else here has like the jobber role, but I really think he puts on good matches, and honestly, he's really surprising me with his promo cutting abilities. He sounds a lot better than what he did when he first came. And he doesn't have that look that a lot of people see, but I think that he could definitely maybe be in a Rey Mysterio, not luchador type style, but that bit of that underdog role if they decide to change his character up a bit. And then for the main event, I think it's a unanimous like the release portion. I'm gonna go with Roman Reigns. He has the look, he has the talent. Baby girl, he's got the spear. I think that's all that matters in the end. And the Superman. God, the Superman punch is fucking amazing. Should you do that more?
I'm going to echo a lot of the same opinions, and actually the same exact list as Wego. You got to release Jack Swagger. He's too problematic, and you talk about people causing issues. Swagger, so many different things that he has made the error of doing. All the multiple wellness policy violations, the
breathing,
breathing out all that pot smoke. He's injured people. He's not really improving on the mic or in the ring. And he's really just gotten to the point now where you're not going to get anything more out of him. Jobber, Seth Rollins, he has a lot of positive qualities about him, but he's really just not that big of a presence. And like what Peyton said, he's somebody who could sell moves for other people pretty well. Midcard, Dean Ambrose, same reasons that Wego had said. I think he's overrated in a lot of different ways. His ring skills more so than his mic skills. I like him on the mic a lot better than in the ring. And when it comes to overall entertainment value, the two other guys, they just surpass him. Ziggler, it's unfortunate, but I got to give him upper mid-card because it just doesn't seem like WWE is going to ever push him that far. And he maybe will end up being stuck in that Mr. Perfect kind of role where you kind of are the main eventer, but you really are never actually the main event guy. But Roman Reigns, he needs to improve his mic skills a little bit, but he has been improving them, and all signs point to him being main event star in the future, and I can't disagree with it. I think he's got by far the best look out of everybody, and he's not horrible on the mic, and he's entertaining in the ring. So, no reason for me to not go with Roman Reigns here as well. So the second group that we have, the Elimination Chamber participants, the guys who actually beat those people to be in the match with Randy Orton. Those are Daniel Bryan, John Cena, and Sheamus, who beat The Shield, Antonio Cesaro, who beat Dolph Ziggler, and Christian, who beat Jack Swagger. So going around the same group here, Peyton, who would you go with for this group?
This one was a little bit tougher. For me, release, I would say Christian. Once again, a guy that's just not a lot left to do with, and it's time to let him go on to his second career as a carrot. For Jobber, I would have Sheamus. Sheamus, I really just think has been shoved down our throats too much. He's okay. He's not amazing. I think he'll be great as a jobber guy, not as like a Zack Ryder jobber guy, but more like a guy who gets enough wins to seem credible once in a while, but ultimately still loses to the rising stars. Someone like a Kofi Kingston. That's where I would relegate Sheamus to as a jobber. Mid-card, Antonio Cesaro. He's absolutely fantastic, absolutely a future star. I just don't think he's ready yet. I think he needs a little bit more years of tuning on the big circuit, and I think he'll be into that spot. He's just got to develop a little bit more character. Maybe dropping Antonio out of his name is what he needs. Yeah, that'll do it. Upper mid-card, John Cena. I mean, the guy's a legend already. You can't afford to not make money with this guy, keeping him in some kind of prominent role. You don't have to have him in the title picture. You could have John Cena just doing whatever John Cena's doing, and that's an important story. So keep him around in the upper mid card. Keep him fighting people who are in that main event scene or trickling down into that upper mid card area. And of course, main event would have to be Daniel Bryan. I mean, you'd have to be silly not to pick Daniel Bryan over pretty much anybody when you're doing this type of scenario. Daniel Bryan, yes, yes, yes.
Fuego?
Yes!
Eh,
For the jobber, I'm going to go with Sheamus. I just don't see the appeal to the guy. He's big, and he's a solid worker. He's had some really good matches, but then again, the bulk of his work is just kind of meh. I mean, every time you see him and Randy Orton in the ring, everyone shits all over him. I don't know if that's so much him or Randy Orton, but either way, there's like no one in the top, out of the top guys or in the mid card that I'm interested in seeing him work with. I've had my fill of Sheamus, heel or face, and say just cut the guy if you had to pick one of these.
So you have him for released?
Yeah, release, definitely. Okay. As far as my jobber, Christian. I'm a big Christian fan. He's got a lot of experience. He can still go. And putting over guys, he's probably a great person to do that because he's a well-known name and he can do more for putting guys over than, say, a Sheamus could because he's being more established. Mid-card definitely goes to Antonio Cesaro. The guy's a solid in the ring, but he's not ready for that main event push yet. He could definitely hold a mid-card title again, work with some of the upper mid-card talent and have great matches with them just to season him up a little more. For my upper mid-card, it's going to be John Cena. Now, Cena is just a matter of pretty much what I said with Sheamus, where I've seen so much of him that I'm disinterested, but at the same time, he makes that much money, and he's such a major part of the WWE structure where you can't really drop him too far down on the card. So if I had to slot him in anywhere, since I can't double up, Cena gets it put in the upper mid card. As far as the main event goes, it's Daniel Bryan. He gets the loudest reactions in the crowd. He can sell merchandise. If you actually get behind him and start treating him like a main eventer and stop having him job out now and again, he has the potential to be the biggest face in their company and probably one of the biggest faces in the last 10 years. That guy is over, and you can only go up from there unless you're an idiot.
Yes!
Drew, what's your list?
my list is exactly what Peyton's is because I'm a copier. Yes! So it's I have Christian in the release role because there's not much left you can do with him. Sheamus as my jobber. Sheamus, I've never really hated on Sheamus. I've get tired of him at times. But I've always enjoyed what he's done in the ring. Yes, his promos have always been childish. He's kind of the Irish version of John Cena. But while people would hate on his matches with Del Rio in 2012, I quite enjoyed them. They weren't the best matches ever, but I always enjoyed it. I didn't like the storyline going into it. But again, the match was good, and that's all that matters. Anyways. For the mid-card, I'd put Cesaro, not Antonio. The Cesaro now, because, like all of you guys have said so far, he's getting there, but he's not quite to the main event yet. So being in that mid-card role, he could vouch and battle for and build up his character and his wrestling ability from there. The upper mid-card, I'd put in John Cena. Like everyone else has said, he's at that point now in his career where he's a legend. And there's really it's to that point where he doesn't need to be in the main event and spotting for a championship. He could just go over and help build the talent that's trying to work up as well. And I think that's a role that he should start doing soon. And then for the main event, we have the Yes Man, leader of the Yes Movement, and any other stupid name that people have came up with. Daniel Bryan, which he didn't take it from here.
What?
You start saying yes.
What do you mean?
Damn it, just start saying yes.
Why would I say yes?
Anyways, Daniel Bryan is my main event. God damn it.
Maybe.
Meh.
Moo.
I'm gonna have a slightly different. I'm gonna have a slightly different list than what people had mentioned before. I'm a little bit down on some other people in comparison. The Christian released. It's kind of a shame, but the way that this list worked out, we've got 3 people that just overshadow the other 2 people, and that's what sort of balances it out in this way for me. And Christian, he's had a solid career, and he is somebody who has a lot to offer. But when you give me this group of 5 people, he's the one that I think is the most logical person to just kind of get rid of, because how many more years is he really going to be around? And how much value is he going to have in those few years now that the title was unified? He's not going to be somebody that's challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship anymore, because that doesn't exist. So at maximum, Christian is going to be the person that he is in this Elimination Chamber match, where he's kind of somebody to throw to the wolves. And maybe he'll get an Intercontinental title reign. Maybe he'll be in the United States title picture and all that. He'll be a filler main event guy, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think he's really he's seen the maximum of what his career's height's going to be. Jobber sucks, but Antonio Cesaro, he's impressive, and I like him in the ring a hell of a lot more than Sheamus, but he doesn't have as much of a presence as somebody like Sheamus does. And if you're telling me that I have to factor in the crowd response and marketing and whether or not the person can cut the promos and all this other kind of stuff together, I don't like to admit it, but Sheamus has an edge on him. And Cesaro just by default has to go into that jobber spot because he can't go up higher than Sheamus, and I'm putting Sheamus in the mid-card. So he has to go down to the number 4 spot. And Sheamus, as I just said, he's the mid-carder because, as Peyton had mentioned, he was shoved down our throats quite a bit. And I think that's actually the majority reason why Sheamus is the guy at the spot that he is today. He definitely doesn't deserve it. And if you were to put him in previous eras, there's no way that Sheamus would have been a multi-time world champion. Think about what have happened in the Attitude Era when we had Austin and The Rock and Triple H and a lot of big names going on there, The Undertaker and all that. Sheamus would have been the guy that they build up for a year to lose to The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and then he would have probably done nothing else. That's essentially the spot he would have been at. So I don't see him as the upper mid-carder at all. And officially my list, I went with Daniel Bryan on the upper mid-card and John Cena in the main event, but the opinions that everybody else has made today, it's hard to argue against that. And I kind of think that in retrospect, I should switch that around and John Cena should be the upper mid card. My original opinion was that Daniel Bryan is essentially a main event guy, but John Cena does have that bigger presence, the same kind of argument of Cesaro and Sheamus. But maybe you just kind of downgrade him a little bit now, and John Cena becomes that upper mid-card guy that slots himself in the main event but doesn't have to win it all. And Daniel Bryan can be that top guy who is the underdog, who wins those matches, and people actually can get behind and everything like that. So I'm a little bit 50-50 on that. I mean, maybe if Daniel Bryan can get that big of a push, he should get that main event spot. Maybe John Cena makes the most sense because he's just that top guy that they've had for all these years. And that's the biggest business decision that you can make. I don't know. But let us know what you would pick for these different groups here. Who would you call the spot on the card for the losers and the winners of the Elimination Chamber match? How would you rank them? And what do you think about the segment too as well? Do you think this works better on just smarkoutmoment.com itself? Or do you think that this is a fun discussion, kind of like Superstar Scores and all the other stuff that we do here? We're going to do one last segment in part 6, and we're going to talk about some Fantasy League different trades and everything else that's going on with that. Round it out with some plugs, and that'll be it for this episode. So stay tuned for episode 118, part 6.